What is a Nîdhwal? What are they like? What are they? Where do they live? What makes them special? Today, on this episode of the Inheritance Cycle Analyzed, we go in depth regarding one of the strangest and most obscure creatures in the land of Allagasia. Hello everyone, this is SaberRex, and in this video we will be covering the characters, creatures, and plots of books and films such as the Primitive War franchise, the Inheritance Cycle, and so much more. So without further ado, welcome, one and all. The Nîdhwal, or Nîdhwalar in plural form, are large reptilian creatures that are cousins to dragons. Capable of growing just as large as any dragon, they possess four oar-like flippers not unlike a plesiosaur or a mosasaur, along with long tails and serpentine bodies and long necks. Their jaws are filled with needle-like teeth for grabbing prey, and they have long, fleshy tendrils hanging off the bottom of their jaws. Though we don't know how large they can get, they are capable of growing large enough that one was capable of swallowing a horse and rider whole without needing to close its teeth around such a meal. What they eat is largely unknown, but their diet likely includes whales, dolphins, sharks, seals, fish, and maybe even giant squid if they exist in Allagasia. It's even possible that there are other monsters in the sea that are just as fierce and terrifying that Nîdhwalar prey upon and are preyed upon by. Until we learn more about them, however, this is pure speculation on my part. In addition to being related to dragons, they are also related to the Fanghor of the Bior Mountains. However, despite the greater differences in their appearance, Nîdhwalar are more closely related to dragons than Fanghor are. They even have a gem-like structure in their chest similar to an Eldunari that allows them to remain submerged at great depths for a long period of time, though it is never stated how long. This would suggest that it has some sort of role in helping them to store oxygen and energy, helping them to remain underwater for much longer than other creatures might be able to. Nîdhwalar are also intelligent creatures, far more than the Fanghor. However, the Nîdhwalar do not believe themselves to be anything like dragons. In fact, they would readily eat a dragon if they encountered one, and all attempts to communicate with them have failed. The fact that they eat others of their own species makes them even more rare, so much so that by the time of the inheritance cycle, they are considered critically endangered. Nîdhwalar use their minds to incapacitate their prey just as the Fanghor do, a feature that dragons likewise possess, though dragons take it a step further in being capable of mentally communicating via language. While what they eat is largely unknown and can be guessed at, they will, as stated before, gladly consume a dragon should they happen to come across one. And some have, being mentally incapacitated by Nîdhwalar and then dragged to a watery grave. This only showcases just how powerful these creatures really are. Historically, Nîdhwalar are apparently quite rare and are not often spoken about. For the most part, they lived several days' journey out to sea, but apparently by the events of the final book of the Inheritance Cycle, they had started growing either very bold or quite desperate. In Aragon, we get what might be the first hint that they exist in the story of Fundor, the dragon who fought a giant sea snake. We don't learn much about this incident beyond who was involved, but it does showcase the creature's existence. It isn't until the book Inheritance that we see one directly in the story, when during their flight to Vroengard Island in the chapter A Crown of Ice and Snow, a Nîdhwal tries to ambush Aragon, Saphira, and Glader's Eldunari during the journey when Saphira stops to rest upon the water. The creature narrowly misses biting Saphira and briefly glares at all three of its intended victims as they fly away before retreating back into the depths, and the incident leaves them alarmed, with Aragon and Saphira left curious and agreeing to a deal with Glader, saying he will spend the next 10 years teaching Aragon and Saphira about every creature he knows about if they are alive and free a week from then, so they are not left unprepared by such a dangerous animal again. Glader himself is equally surprised by the creature's attack, saying that the Nîdhwal have grown either bold or desperate since the fall of the dragon riders, since he remembers that they are usually only found several days' journey out to sea, something I mentioned earlier. Later, we also learn that one of the dragons whose Eldunari was hidden in the Vault of Souls to protect him and the 100 other Eldunari stored within actually hunted Nîdhwal. This purple dragon's name is Quarok. Unfortunately, this is all we learn about his past history with these creatures, as Quarok's story is not elaborated on. Given his title, it is implied that he had several encounters with these creatures, possibly even having killed at least one or perhaps several individuals of the species. So, what does all this tell us about the Nîdhwal? Well, we can't really say much beyond what we have already described, as they only appear once within the entirety of the inheritance cycle thus far. Well, we can say that the Nîdhwal we do see has its mind briefly probed by Aragon during its attack on him and his dragon. What he sees when he looks into its mind is nothing short of an unending, ravenous hunger, and having seen many years of hunting and being hunted in the dark depths of the deepest parts of the sea. This suggests that these creatures are quite feral, despite their intelligence. Likewise, Glader states that the Nîdhwal do not care for anything that exists outside their own realms, so it could be said that they are quite apathetic to anything in the world beyond the sea. The fact that they will readily eat their own kind, including their relatives the dragons, means that their numbers are probably quite low. Given their size being at least as large as a blue whale, this would also be very likely to be true, as larger animals need more space in order to roam, hunt, and feed. The habit of eating their own kind also suggests that they are very antisocial, possibly coming together only to mate, and even then there might be a risk of one perhaps eating the other shortly after. In many ways, the Nîdhwal represents a dark and dangerous sea serpent, as well as being a close relative to dragons in the story. It bears many similarities with classic sea serpents found in modern and ancient mythology, such as Ogopogo and the biblical Leviathan. It also bears many similarities to prehistoric marine reptiles such as plesiosaurs, pliosaurs, and mosasaurs. All of these were dangerous marine predators that could grow to very large sizes, as large as many modern whales such as orcas and sperm whales. The Nîdhwal is quite clearly able to grow bigger than these, but its impressive size is certainly comparable to those seen in large baleen whales alive today. Like these giant marine reptiles mentioned previously, the Nîdhwal is a carnivore and likely feeds on giant marine animals as prey. That they can dive deep is also very similar to many deep-diving marine mammals such as sperm whales themselves, as well as the mysterious and extremely shy beaked whales, some species of which can actually stay down for almost 4 hours on a single breath that lasts 2 minutes at the surface and diving nearly 10,000 feet deep, or almost 2 miles. If you want to confirm the veracity of that statement, I would highly recommend looking up the Cuvier's beaked whale. It currently holds the record for the longest and deepest diving marine mammal on the planet. Christopher Paolini's decision to create a sea monster that was a relative of dragons is ultimately, in and of itself, quite fitting. Perhaps, like many fantasy stories, we need our sea monsters, maybe as a way of showcasing the fear of the unknown and the mysteries and dangers that lie beneath the waves. In such a case, it is then fitting to quote John Steinbeck and say, "A sea without its nameless creatures would be like sleep without dreams." And so we come to the end of our analysis of the Nïdhwal, the deep-sea cousin of dragons that roams Alagasia's ocean abyss. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. Every bit of appreciation helps out the channel and allows me to share more information on stories like these with viewers like you. As always, thank you so much for watching.